Working right. Bring this meeting to order, August 1st, 2023, 6:30 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here. Here. Here.
All right. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda. Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Bristow. Yes. Mayor Mahoney,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Tapey,
Yes.
Trustee Westcott.
Yes.
Carries. Next item is public comments, and we have just one individual. Leroy Lucio, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Leroy Lucio, and I live at 47 Shenandoah Way, Lochbuie, Colorado. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen of the Town Council, I stand before you today to advocate for the importance of maintaining the prohibition on keeping of pigeons within our town limits. While pigeons might seem harmless at first glance, there are several compelling reasons why we should continue to enforce this restriction. Firstly, pigeons can pose serious health risks to our community. They are known carriers of various diseases and parasites, as well as mites and ticks. Allowing pigeons to thrive in our town may lead to an increase in these health hazards, putting our residents, especially elderly, at risk. Secondly, pigeons can cause significant damage to public and private property. Their droppings are corrosive and can degrade housing materials, cause damage to solar panels, and corrode paint on vehicles, etc. These damages all lead to costly repairs and maintenance. Furthermore, their nests can clog gutters and drainage systems, potentially causing water damage to infrastructures. Additionally, the presence of pigeons can negatively impact the aesthetic appeal of our town. The accumulation of droppings on sidewalks, houses, buildings, and public spaces can create an unsightly and unhealthy environment. This not only affects the perception of residents, but also visitors and tourists of our town, potentially deterring economic growth and investment. Moreover, permitting pigeons in our town may lead to an overpopulation problem. Pigeons are prolific breeders, and without proper management, their numbers can quickly spiral out of control. Before I researched, I thought that pigeons would just fly south for the winter. I quickly discovered that pigeons are generally considered resident birds, meaning that they do not migrate long distances for seasonal changes. They often stay in their local habitats year-round, even during the cold winter months. As a result, the problem associated with their presence will increase over time, creating more challenges for the town to address. In conclusion, maintaining the ban on pigeons within town limits is essential to protect the health and well-being of our residents, preserve our infrastructure, and uphold the aesthetic appeal of our beloved town. Instead of allowing pigeons to thrive, let us focus on humane and effective methods for pest control and implement strategies to keep our town clean, safe, and welcoming for all. Thank you for your time and consideration. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. The pictures that you were given are just pictures of our neighborhood. Just going on a walk. I've lived in the town of Lockbowie for 12 years now. And I've never until this summer seen a problem with pigeons. As I'm walking my dog, I'm starting to notice that we have pigeons on top rooftops, everywhere. And it's starting to get out of control. I didn't understand why. Then I found out, the last town meeting that we had an advocator that wanted to keep birds. And, I found out that he races birds, he lets them out. He says he shakes a can, they come back and he goes, well, a couple of them go rogue, but then they don't eat. Well, actually birds do what they were born to do, is they start creating homes, they start finding mates, and they start breeding. And now I've noticed that this breeding problem is getting out of control. And I just want to advocate for the prohibition of keeping birds in the town of Lockbowie. Do you have any questions?
Questions? But
Thank you for your time and consideration.
yes, thank you. All right.
Mayor, may I
Yes.
just let the council or the board trustees know that my office is putting together a matrix for you to let you know how other jurisdictions around here regulate fowl, whether they prohibit them outright like we currently do or have an exception for homing pigeons. So I'll try to get that to the board here in the next meeting or two.
Okay, thank you. All right. Did we have anything online? Questions? Okay. All right, next item is consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are the payment approval report, in the amount of $302,604.54. The July 18th, 2023 minutes, resolution 2023-29. And the preparation of the, or actually 2023-29. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
trustee Bristow,
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Tapey,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
trustee White.
Yes.
And carries. All right, now, the fun thing. United Power. Bringing big giant checks. Can you add a few more zeros onto that? Can you add a few more zeros onto that?
Mayor, trustees, I'm Brian Blim, your key account advisor with United Power. I'm here tonight to present your capital credit check for 2023. As an electric cooperative serving the town of Lockbowie, United Power brings the cooperative difference to life every day through the local service and support that we provide to every person and business that we serve. One of Colorado's largest and fastest growing cooperatives, United Power serves nearly 107,000 residences and businesses throughout the Northern Front Range. Those we serve are more than customers. They are members of the cooperative. Members have an active voice in the operation of the cooperative and share a financial stake in our operation. Because you receive service from an electric cooperative, you own part of the operation, and your investment into United Power is returned to you over time in the form of capital credits. Your share of capital credits is calculated based on your electric consumption, how you use power, and the amount of years that you've had service from United Power. Generally, the longer you're a member, the larger your capital credit retirement becomes. Each year, our board of directors considers our financial condition and determines if they can return or retire a portion of your investment as a capital credit retirement. And that is why I'm here today. In 2023, the board authorized a capital credit retirement of $4.5 million, which has been allocated amongst all of our members. The town of Lockbowie has 19 accounts with United Power, and since 1995, we returned more than 62,000 in capital credits, and that includes the retirement check I present to you today. On behalf of your electric cooperative, I'm pleased to deliver your 2023 capital credit retirement in the amount of $2,854. We enjoy having you as a member of United Power. Appreciate the opportunity to serve you. Thank you. And if possible.
All right, well,
Are you ready for a picture?
yeah. Let's get everybody out.
Get everybody on it?
No,
I think it's a mayor thing.
this is a board thing. Now you go to check. Now you get
Right?
All right. Okay, next item is resolution 2023-30. Mr. Stanley?
For the additional staffing requirements that we discussed at the retreat, we need to find a place to put that additional staff. So we've done an examination of Building B. And knowing that the board has adopted recent policies for the community use of Building B, we need to repeal that policy to allow for conversion into for staff office space. We do have a sample floor plan attached, and that was just a quick draft to show what kind of yield we could have for staffing. We're doing several revisions to that floor plan. And I think also our intent with this would be that we'd probably move Public Works out of Building A, have staffing in there, so that way would eliminate 2 buildings for winterization as well. So we'd consolidate into Building B. We request that we repeal the resolution that of 2319.
Okay. Questions, comments? Trustee Tapie?
I really like the idea. I think I like the layout, the proposed usage of it really seems to be a good idea.
Right. Trustee Bristow?
I did just have a quick question. So you're talking about consolidating the Public Works into Building B as well?
We would consolidate like Chris's office into this building and have a space for the field crew to come in and have a workstation in that building.
Okay, and the restroom, it says that you can build another restroom. Is it in addition to the one that's there, or is it
We
gonna
would
be like
keep
ADA?
Yeah, we would
accessible?
keep the existing and make, both of them would need to be ADA, but by building code, we're required to have 2 restrooms in that building.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee White? Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey?
Do we have any rough estimates as to the cost yet?
We don't yet. We'd be working with a modular company and we're hoping that we could pick up some of their used modular equipment.
And then what will be the plan for building A?
Don't have a plan to move forward with that building at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Westcott,
I don't have anything. Thank you.
trustee Cohen.
Sorry, I'm confused about building A. Why are we moving people out of there and then not having a plan for it?
Public Works thought would be better to consolidate into building B. And that way they could winterize building A and not heat two buildings in the winter.
Okay, no further questions, comments. Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 2023-30, repealing resolution 2023-19 to allow for conversion of building B into office space for town employees.
Second.
Second, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
trustee Cohen,
Yes.
trustee Bristow,
Yes.
trustee Chapey,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes. Motion carries. All right, the next item is the marijuana advisory ballot question.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, if you recall, you adopted a resolution authorizing the town's participation in the coordinated election in November, but asked that we table the actual language of the ballot question so you'd have more time to talk about it. So this is the major topic of tonight's agenda, kind of a quasi little work session for you. If you recall, what the direction was is to come up with an advisory question. So again, this is not a legally binding question. The goal of this question is after the voters weigh in, that you all know what it is the voters want you to do. And so ask the question in a way that gives you that information. And I think that that's it. And we can open it up for discussion, Mayor. And there was some suggested language in the resolution. That was essentially the same question that was asked in 2016, I believe. But I think that the board wanted to talk a little bit more about how that question should be
Yeah.
put forward.
And I actually leave the floor open. Anyone have any input? I mean, there's a lot of information to go over for sure. And that's my big issue is how are you gonna pose a question like that? We're not gonna be able to cover all of this information.
Well, right. You can't ask a ballot question that says, shall we regulate the sale of marijuana, allow them in commercial zones and only allow them to operate from 9 to 5 every day and ensure there's scrubbers in the building? And I mean, you can't put all of those regulations in the question. So what you're looking for here is, I believe, just general guidance from your voters. Is this a community that now supports the sale of marijuana in this town or not? We've already asked that question in the past and they didn't, but times change and 7 years ago. So, that's why I started this off with ask the same question, which was a pretty open-ended. Do you support marijuana in commercial and industrial zones in town? But I think you can add layers to that if you think it's appropriate. You just don't want to lose voters and you're all voters. So you know that sometimes when these questions get too many details, you might say no because you don't like, if you put something in there with the specifics of a regulation, they might not like that regulation, but otherwise have liked the question. So that's the difficulty when you really ask too many details in the question. You lose people because of the detail.
I think to Maureen's point, I liked the question, the way it was worded in the last meeting. Because I think the fewer gory details, the more high level the question, the better, because then you just end up sort of out in the weeds and we're just trying to get the spirit of how people want us to move forward. The last time we asked a question as this board was the survey that went out, and what we really asked was, do people want to put it on the ballot? But then sort of how we felt was it was sort of ambiguous because we weren't really clear on what we were asking because it was sort of complicated how we asked it. So I think we need simpler is better so we can just sort of get a feel for what our
Well,
citizens
last time
want.
it was also a tax question.
I'm talking about the survey
Oh, on the
that we
survey.
just put out.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with trustee Cohen. I my opinion is that we should go very simple with the question. Do you support the sale of it within the town limits? And
Retail sales, yeah.
thank you. But based on the information that Brian presented a few months ago, it seems like this is going to be a long process. So if we need to go back and get more clarification, I feel like we will have time to do that if we feel like we need more direction. But keeping it simple so people aren't confused and don't know what they're actually voting for or against, I think is.
Well, that's been my stance all along is, let's ask the simple question, do you want, or would you like to see retail marijuana sales in the town of Lockwood? And then from there, once, one way or the other, if they say yes, then it's our job to come in and do all the details and figure out where we want it, where we're gonna allow it. Are we gonna allow cultivation? Are we gonna allow grow, or, what are the details? Anyone else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I drafted just but it is a basic question, but it asks, would you support a well-regulated retail marijuana sales within the town of Lockwood for adult use only, with a percentage of sales funding town projects?
You just can't ask tax questions in this advisory question. It's just not legally effective. When you're going to ask a tax question, you have magic words that you have to use under Tabor. So
Yeah, that's a
Can
bit
you-
more binding too.
I'm sorry. Do you have the question as you asked it? I'm sorry to ask you to repeat what you already gave us, but from the last meeting, do you have that we could hear it? Please.
Add it up. Hold on. I have the ballot question from the last time we voted on it. If that's what you're asking. Says, do you support the town of Lockwood Board of Trustees taking actions to allow and regulate operation of retail marijuana stores, medical and adult use within limited commercial areas of the town?
Okay, and today I reached out again to some of the same towns I have talked to before, but specifically our closest, which is going to be Fort Lupton. I have copies of their question and it read, shall the establishment and operation of medical marijuana centers and retail marijuana stores be permitted in the city of Fort Lupton, Colorado, subject to the requirements of the state of Colorado medical and retail marijuana codes and regulations and the ordinances and codes to be adopted by the city of Fort Lupton?
And did they pass, did they get a yes on that?
They did. I talked to their town clerk today. They've allowed permitted 4 stores to be built in Fort Lupton. The one where Trevor came in and said there's going to be that 5-car drive-through, that's happening. They're all in the planning stage, but they've allowed 4 so far in town. So I also reached out to Thornton. I also reached out to Commerce City as well as Denver. And everyone basically is sending me their questions. So I just think it's going to be imperative with the wording. I don't think we should repeat the question we asked last time. It's going to have to be worded in a different manner. I think almost the way that you read it, it sounded more like they're agreeing to just give the board power to make the decisions. And I think that might be coming across wrong to people, where that's the way I interpreted it anyway when I heard it.
Did you reach out to any of the communities who recently voted no against this to see if there was any material difference in the wording of the question, to see if there's a correlation there?
I have not. No. I mean, the only other town I could even think of, I guess, right now would be Brighton.
Or Lockwood.
Yeah, and us. So I could do that. It was just a lot of cold calling and waiting for emails. And unfortunately, they all kind of came in after 3 o'clock. So I didn't really get to pull it all together too well. But I think using those resources, I mean, when I'm looking at these towns, as far as population, as well as current retail tax revenues, I'd say just in those 2 things, our most comparable town is going to be Milliken. As far as our size and the fact that they also had nothing as far as rec and all the things that we were lacking, they are the closest and they are very willing to share the information. I just don't know how to get that out to everybody. I was also hesitant to mass email everybody that information, because then if we're talking back and forth, I know we're not supposed to do that. So I'm really curious to know, is there a way to actually pool these towns around us and find those actual ballot questions? Because when I'm Googling it at home, I mean, it's coming up in a little square. That's super hard to see. You try to zoom in and print it, and then it was, I cropped it and printed it, and it wasn't legible for me to bring to share. So is there a better way to get those where we can reference?
There's no single depository of ballot questions like that, unless CML is keeping some sort of a matrix, but I'm not aware of that. Like, there's no government agency that people send these types of marijuana questions to necessarily. So, I don't know, Steve, if maybe staff could assist in doing some work, or I could try to have somebody in my office assist in doing some of the legwork, but I think it's calling town clerks and asking for the language of the ballot question.
So the question you read for Fort Lupton, I don't feel is materially different than what Kat and Maureen read. So I'm comfortable with that question. If that makes you comfortable, if it feels different and we know somebody got a yes vote on that question, I don't have an issue using that wording.
Find any other ones that they sent me.
Well, ultimately, I mean, Maureen's gonna create the wording and then we get the
Well, I'm
opportunity
not,
to.
I mean, this was initially set up as an advisory question. So to give you an idea, the
Yeah.
way that Fort Lupton asked their question
They're-
was arguably more binding on the
Yeah.
Board of Trustees. And that's fine if you're willing to be bound, but I don't want to have, I'm trying to avoid an argument. So our question has always been, do you support the board taking action? Because the fact that the voters tell you that a majority of them support it, you can still overrule that, right? You're not allowing them to legislate. You're treating this as a Republican. And so you can go either way. This is a policy decision that you're elected to make. And that's why we scheduled this as an kind of a work session time, because you asked for that. So you could have this very discussion. I think it's great. I think you can ask the Fort Lupton question. Was that Fort Lupton? Yeah. Or any question. In the end, what you want to know is, I guess the first question is, do you want to be bound by this vote in November? Or do you want to get advice from the voters as to the action that you should take? Because you're going to know from the voters, they're basically supportive or they're not. And if they are supportive, you can adopt reasonable regulations. If you want to, you could also go like this to the voters, and then you'll probably be recalled.
Yeah, I'm all
So-
for the advisory question. I want to see it as an advisory so that they give us the direction
Okay.
and
So if it's going to be
doesn't-
advisory, you could take the Fort Lupton question, if you could read that again, trustee White, and you could convert that to say, instead of shall the board do this, you should say, do you support the board doing?
I guess it would be, so I'll just read what it says. It says, shall the establishment and operation of medical marijuana centers and retail marijuana stores be permitted in the city of Fort Lupton, Colorado, subject to the requirements of the state of Colorado medical and retail marijuana code and regulations and the ordinances and codes to be adopted by the city.
So that could just be, do you support the Board of Trustees taking action to establish blah, 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 blah?
I like that. Go ahead.
I was just going to add to, I did a little quick research as well, just a Google search, and found pretty much the same verbiage for the town of, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Paonia, Colorado.
Mhm.
Basically the same verbiage, a little simpler as far as, again, it was shall the establishment and operation of retail and medical marijuana stores be permitted in the town of Lockwood, Colorado, subject to the requirements of the Colorado Retail Marijuana Code and regulations set by the Board of Trustees. So just a little simpler verbiage, but when I was looking, I saw the yays and the nays, and for the most part, the verbiage is pretty much similar. I don't know if it's the city of Aurora. Wow, their ballot questions were. Yeah, we don't definitely wouldn't want to do that. So, yes, I'm in agreement with that as well. Simpler is better.
What's that?
Simpler is
Oh.
better.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna trot out my English teacher hat and just agree and say, yeah, the simpler you can get, the better, the more succinct we can be, the better. I guess my first question is there materially, in terms of what we do, is there, I mean, I understand that there actually is a difference, but if we, between medical marijuana centers and retail sales, if we're asking for both, maybe someone should just tell me what the difference is between the two, so I can make sure that I have the same understanding as everybody else.
Major differences, medical marijuana, you have to have your card and prescription, that kind of thing, versus retail where you can
Okay,
go in and just.
So that's what I
purchase.
thought.
And
I guess my
also,
question, go ahead.
Medical patients are also allowed higher limits.
Yeah,
Of what they're allowed to purchase and how much they're able to possess it's usually done on a daily basis.
So can a retail store sell medical level?
If they're licensed
Yeah.
for medical, they have to be licensed for both.
Okay, so my question is, do we need to have both of them in the question?
I believe so, because in the research that I found, just looking around, outside of Fort Lupton, which is not open yet, there aren't really any marijuana retail centers open, I would say, going Weld County going this way, unless you hit Greeley. So if you want to hit, and you gotta understand, if it's a medical patient, you guys have to understand that this person has seen a doctor, gotten a prescription, just like you go to your PCP, and you come home. There are people who are, as far as I know, that I've seen personally, I've worked in healthcare. There are patients I've seen as young as 3 suffering from seizures and whatnot, things of that nature that come in and have prescriptions. And I think saying, hey, we're gonna sell retail, but we're not gonna allow you to have your medical needs met.
So that wasn't what I was getting at. What I was getting at is if we're asking them whether or not they support it, does it really matter if we ask them about both? Because we're going to come back and fine tune it. So really what we're asking is, do you support the sale of it within the town? And then we figure out where those boundaries are. I feel like if you start asking that and people are like, well, I support one, but not the other. And then maybe you get a no when they would have voted yes because they didn't. So in my, again, go simple. In fact, I really, unless there's a legal reason not to, just asking, do you support the town? What was you said? The town board, whatever the wording was. Now I can't remember. Do you support the sale of retail marijuana within the town limits of Lockwood? That to me is just simple, straightforward. Do you or don't you? And if it doesn't need to be retail because you're concerned about the marijuana, the medical, then we can just take it and just make it. Do you support the sale of marijuana within the town? So that's just, again, my language
no, I
hat
agree.
response.
That's a great point. I do agree with that. Go ahead.
Is it important to signify that it will be a licensed?
Say that again.
That the establishment, the medical marijuana store will be a licensed medical marijuana?
They all
store?
have to be licensed. So, I mean,
Okay, and some of the information out there, it alludes to both, that there are
well, there's different
unlicensed.
licenses. There's the retail and the medical are 2 separate licenses based on how they do this stuff, but
Okay.
they still have to be licensed. And we had the guy in here and he talks about how they regulate and,
Right, right.
yeah. Anyone else?
Find one ballot approach that's maybe interesting to y'all. I never even heard of this town, the town of Nunn, N-U-N-N.
Yeah.
Never even heard of that. Been around for a long time.
Did you just move here?
Yeah. Is it a big town?
Have you heard of Lockwood?
Okay, I've heard of Lockwood. Okay, so town of Nunn asked 2 questions on the last ballot. They're alternative. Yeah, it is. They're alternative contingency questions. The first one is the Tabor question. Shall the town taxes be increased by 360,000 or such greater or lesser amount which may actually be received, yada blah blah Tabor language, by the imposition of an additional retail sales tax on the sale of retail marijuana businesses as defined in state statute beginning January 1st of 2023, blah, blah, blah. And so all this kind of stuff to be used and what they're going to use the money for. Okay, so they ask that question and then below it, they say, shall the town of Nunn allow by one or more ordinances that impose suitable regulations in the discretion of the Nanton Board of Trustees, the operation in the town of medical marijuana businesses and retail marijuana businesses as defined by state statute, and the repeal of this ordinance that must have prohibited marijuana, which we would have to do, which prohibit marijuana, subject to and expressly contingent on voter approval of the measure authorizing the additional tax. So in other words, 2M asked, do you want to tax it? 2N says, shall we allow it, but only if you're agreeing to tax it. That's a good way to go about this, but it is binding.
Yeah, and the issue I have with that is there you're putting the tax question again, and people get really confused with it, and I think we need to just have the
Avoid that.
advisory as the marijuana, no tax. So if we do,
Right.
Then
so
we can actually come
We're gonna
back.
need to go back and ask the tax question.
Yeah.
If your voters come and tell you this November, hey, yes, allow marijuana, it gives you some time to get some regulations together. And then you go and ask the tax question next.
we have a whole year to plan and prep and.
And I was thinking that was sort of the point of doing the advisory is before we move forward and spend tax dollars on this effort to do the research, put the regulations in place, make staff go write ordinances. We want to make sure our taxpayers want us to go in this direction.
So kind of think we have a consensus for the most part as far as straightforward, simpler KISS method.
So, fine. So simpler as in the one that was initially suggested, or simpler as in the one that trustee White read, tweaking it to make
I
it
think
advisory,
the hybrid,
the
yeah,
hybrid. Okay.
everybody's kind of in agreement with that, just keeping it simple and non-binding.
You're gonna have to
Question.
take official action on this before November or September 6th, which is your board meeting. So we'll probably do it at the 15th of August. So we'll have to draft a resolution setting the ballot title, because remember, we pulled that out, the resolution at the last meeting so that you could talk about it. So I will bring it back with revised language that's basically the hybrid question, for lack of a better term, for you guys to take official action on in the next meeting. So you're not taking a vote now, but a nod of your heads to let me know that generally you're liking the hybrid approach. I just need to know that I have a basic consensus. The one nod, 2 nods, 3 nods.
Can we just confirm like what the
want
actual
me to reread
hybrid
it?
is before?
I took
Because
some-
there's been a lot of verbiage and I just want to.
This is a binding, but based off of what everyone said, I changed it a little bit. So. Is this on? Okay. It says, should establishment and operation of retail marijuana stores be permitted in the town of Lockwood, Colorado, subject to the requirements of the state of Colorado medical and retail marijuana code and regulations, and in accordance and the ordinances and codes to be adopted by the Lockwood Board of Trustees.
My question is that last part after the comma? Should they be established within the town of Lockwood? Subject, blah, 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 blah. Do we need that?
Well, I think that by operational law, it's all going to be subject to that stuff. So I guess the question is, does that influence voters' decision unfairly? Do you think, does it confuse the voters because it's more verbiage?
Yeah, to me, it's unnecessary. It's almost fodder. It's because I really just want the question, personally, I just want the question to be simple. Do you want marijuana?
Okay, then
So then we're back to the original.
if we cut
question
that
of
half out,
exception.
then the question would read, should establishment and operation of retail marijuana stores be permitted in the town of Lockwood, Colorado?
Do you support the Board of Trustees establishing and allowing the operation of retail and medical marijuana? Does it say retail and medical, or it just says marijuana?
It just, no, they said it didn't make a difference for the
Okay, so-
advisory question.
so-
take that out.
So do you support the Board of Trustees taking action to allow the establishment and operation of marijuana retail sales in town? Question mark. Is that essentially where you are?
I still think that convolutes it. With all the verbiage.
Do we
That
need the
sounds
Board
like
of
they're giving us powers
Trustees?
to do
Yeah, do
something.
we need the Board of Trustees in that question, or can we just Because it, yeah,
You
it
can
does.
just say, do you support the, yeah,
Yeah.
you
'cause
can
it-
say that. You could, do you support the establishment and operation of retail and medical marijuana sales in town?
So retail slash medical, we have to put both.
You're good with retail slash
Medical
Medical.
marijuana stores. So now it'll say, do you support? Do you support the establishment and operation of retail slash marijuana or medical marijuana sales stores to be permitted in the town of Lockwood, Colorado? I don't think it could be any more cut and yes.
No, no. It's just an advisory question. We're not, yeah. Because once we do that, then we go through all the rigmarole and, you know, we have all the headache stuff. Locations and,
And as far, like, does it matter to anybody if it says stores or sales, shops, operations?
I think
Right now it
I'd say
says retail slash
sales.
medical marijuana stores.
sales,
That's
I
what
think
was
stores is
thinking
too specific.
You want stores or sales?
I think sales would, yeah.
So then we're at, do you support the establishment and operation of retail slash medical marijuana sales to be permitted in the town of Lockwood, Colorado? We don't need the establishment part, do you? Establishment, not establishing. That makes sense.
Well, that's fine too. I was just kind of going off of the Fort
Do you
Lupton question,
support
which may be kind of
The sale of marijuana
verbose,
in the
honestly.
town of Lockbowie.
Say that again?
Do you support the sale of marijuana in the town of Lockbowie?
Just the heart on that one.
I've been writing all the different words for marijuana. So,
She's got.
different handwriting.
Hey, man, what are you writing over there, dude? She's got grass, weed, pot. Oh. But
How about just shall marijuana sales be allowed in the town of Lockwood?
Like it.
or we just write marijuana and leave it at that.
Yeah, that's why we always do you support? Do you support marijuana sales in the town of Lockwood?
Yes,
Do you support marijuana sales in the town of Lockwood?
yes.
Yes, you do, or you just.
No, that's the very, I'm not saying, I am not. That's the way we should word it.
Yeah, simple
Okay, here's the,
point.
on the table, do you support marijuana sales in the town of Lockwood?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
That is-
Yes, 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 yes. Sold.
Sweeten to the blunt.
You will speak of it on
Maybe
October,
never
August.
rehash this.
I mean, you will speak of it on August 15th, but I could just put that resolution on your consent agenda if you're telling me if I'm seeing a 7-0 consensus. So we'll stick it on the consent
for-
agenda.
More discussion.
Excellent.
We beat that horse.
Can we use the same question for mushrooms?
We don't have a choice.
Mushrooms are here.
Yeah. All right, we're all good on that one. And let's move forward to mayor and trustee comments. Trustee Cohen,
I don't have anything. Thank you.
you thought pretty hard about that one too. All right, trustee Westcott.
I don't really have anything other than just to thank trustee White for her efforts to reach out to other municipalities and find information. I think that was helpful.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey.
I also give my thanks to the folks who did extra research pertaining to marijuana and it was really nice to have the Oasis event on Saturday. The weather stayed decent for us. I did hear a couple of neighbors a little bit disgruntled that we had been told that concessions would be available and they were not. So I think that's one piece to just be mindful of moving forward. And I also think that vouchers, I'm just curious, like how many were handed out and what was our limit? And I would like to see what we had done the years previous where it's just come, show up and you can come in.
What's that? Can't hear you.
Sorry. Do you want me to answer now or?
If you have that number.
So part of it is that 350 is the limit that was allowed into the pool. So that's why we did the vouchers, just so that we could give the pool. They also asked for kind of an estimate of who we thought, or the number we thought would be coming a few weeks ago. So that's why we kind of tried the voucher, and it hasn't been done before because it seems like in past years it was limited to 100. So it was just first 100 that got in, I believe. So it can definitely be tweaked in years to come. That's just kind of what we tried this year.
How many
vouchers
did we hand out?
I counted, it was Saturday, so last Tuesday or Wednesday, and we had given out about 250. So
Thank you, Heather.
I say we just build our own water park.
Yes.
Trustee White? With marijuana money.
I agree. I also want to say thank you to everybody who looked into research for that. I feel like this is really loud. And I also agree, it was a great day to go. My kids were stoked to be there. We were super disappointed we couldn't get a funnel cake. So that's what we would look at in the future. But I do think the vouchers were a good system. I mean, everyone that I knew or told that came and got a voucher, like they didn't say it was a hassle or upset that they had to come in or anything like that. I just think when you leave it as like an open door policy, you're telling your sister, you're telling your aunt, you're telling your best friend to bring their kids. And how are they verifying that at the door at the Oasis? That's not the job of the attendees. They're just going to stamp people. I mean, so the only way to really make sure it's Lochbuie people, I think, is to have a system like this in place, but that's just my opinion. Other than that, unfortunately, today I do have some notes. So I have follow-ups here. This was my folder from the CML conference. And first I want to say, I don't know if everyone here knows, is anyone else aware that we vote every year when you go to this conference for who's going to be running CML? Like who's governing those? There's open positions. The first year I went, which was last year, I talked to Mayor here and he told me I was the first person ever to ask him, how do we go about voting? When do we talk about it? When do we have this discussion as a board? Like the mayor's casting a vote for us with no discussion. None of us are having any input on who's governing the CML that we've decided we want to be a part of. So I definitely was a little discouraged. I was the only trustee there. I know that everybody has a life and people have things to do, but when I'm walking in representing our town and looking for one empty seat at tables full of 8, 10, 12 people from a municipality, I felt pretty stupid, tell you the truth. Being there by myself and people are asking me, where's your other people? Where's your town people? Do you need to save a seat? Nope, I'm here by myself. So I really would love some more participation in this event from the board as a whole. Let's see, other than that, during the event, one of the first things I went to was actually a really great presentation, which was a guy by Sam Glenn. He's a drawing speech artist. So he draws as he talks and gives encouragement. I really found it to be encouraging points where the strength of a team. I mean, I will say, I feel like as a board, we have that. I know that we all don't share the same views, but I do think we all communicate very well together. And can put aside, personal things. So I really enjoyed his speech that he gave for that. A good point that he made, he just said that people will support what they help build. And that really just hit home because we were talking about this before we went to the meeting. We've talked about home rule, we've talked about the library, all these same issues we keep addressing as a board. And a lot of us are kind of stand firm, it seems like, on our thoughts on certain things. And I feel like as a board, we've kind of hit our high, like we can't go any further without getting the input and the feedback that we're wanting so badly from our constituents. And I don't know, I wish I could sit here and say, hey, I had a great idea on how to do that, but I really don't. I just know that it's not just us. Like this made me, when I heard his presentation, I'm like, hey, he goes around the country and gives these speech all over. So I know that it's not just us. I just want to say, let's just keep trying our best to get more and more people involved, because that's the only way that these things are going to actually change or move forward. I just feel like we're running on a mouse wheel at this point. And let's see, yeah. So yeah, my note was that applied to home rule and marijuana. Another session that I attended there that I really enjoyed was WaterWise. Everyone here knows that I push that a lot. We're just windy and dry out here. So I was shocked to hear that some of these other municipalities, Aurora, some of these little towns, some places in Colorado Springs, they are enforcing these same things that I've been asking about since I started. It's been 3.5 years. I've been told from Brian before he left, I could print out the notes that he sent me last on everything I asked for about water, our water conservation, getting rid of streetscapes, you know, making mandates for these builders to come in and use drought tolerant plants. There shouldn't be anything going in this town besides the Bermuda 70 grass, which is so much more drought tolerant. And it's just blowing my mind that it's been 3.5 years and nothing has changed. And it's something I've screamed about for 3 years, and it was at this conference, and I think it deserves more attention and some actual action to be taken. Fourth item I have from CML is accessibility was a huge thing that came up, and it's something I want to say I've never heard about at our town. I've never seen it on our website. Our website is not friendly. There are laws and regulations as of January 1st that if we're not meeting, our town is going to be penalized for. There are certain criteria for these accessibility requirements that should be held, like our Facebook should be linked to our website. I don't even see that on there. I looked at it today. I don't see a way to jump from one to the other. Like someone, I don't know who in the town is in charge of that, but I would like them to have a copy of what was discussed at CML and make sure that we're meeting those requirements before the date hits at the end of this year. Fifth, there was police positive. I attended that, and that was really good to hear. I know police, I wouldn't want their job. Mad respect for everyone who wears a badge. I know that we've struggled with retention. Something I've just seen throughout the years on social media, and I've seen, you know, at King Soopers, you walk into the Starbucks over there, they have a, you know, coffee with a cop they offer. And I've seen people, why doesn't Lockbuoy do that? I think I love that, you know, we've revamped the mayor's mingle. I don't know how feasible it is. I know we're short-staffed right now again. But I'd love to see that moving forward. If we can't do it monthly, every other month, if not, maybe at least quarterly. And let's try to get these cops to have some face-to-face interactions with some of our constituents outside of, you know, being called to homes. And the few, you know, like the fall festival and thing, I think just having that consistency of having a face and getting to know these police, especially I feel like because ours change so often, that's really important to be able to recognize the people who are protecting and serving you. And last was probably my favorite thing I attended was the railroads. I sat there with Steve was in that as well. I was really surprised about two things, and I guess I'll leave it at that. One is I've never heard this town reference trying to get money from the railroads. So Pacific Northern and BNSF were there, and they were screaming, we have funds, we've upped all of our grants, we have money available, people are not applying, we're not getting applicants for things that they would help us do, from updating railway crossings that we have, completely local community projects. Those were the biggest ones for me, was projects, because I know bridges or road widening, we have bridges, and it doesn't have to be, you know, we're only giving you money here where the railroad comes through your town. They will help you with other projects outside, and funding is the problem that we have. So I really hope that somebody looks into some of the grant funding available through them. It was bnsffoundation.org. So I'd highly recommend that. And the last thing, I know that when we've talked and we had our meetings, we've talked about our railway and how we're trying to play nice, but we want to be shiny. And something that popped out from this session that I sat through was, they said, right now, today, anybody can pick up a phone, call these railways and say, hey, our police department, our fire department wants to start doing your free training. It's free. And it would make us shinier if we were to say, hey, everyone on staff is already ready for your facility to come in. It would just be another little cherry on top. So I think, I was hoping that Chief would be here today and see what his thoughts were, but maybe that's something we could run by him and somebody at the fire department and see if it's feasible to start making these contacts and getting that training. Reality is whether or not, you know, they annex into Lock Buoy, it's training we should have. If there is an emergency, we will be first on site. So that is it. Thank you.
All right. All right, trustee Bristow,
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
trustee Tapie,
No comments. Thank you.
great. And I have nothing, so I will now entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Steve.
Oh, go ahead.
Marie and I did have a conversation today with opportunity, as you know, we have.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There may be an opportunity for us to work with Castle Rock, maybe. Check reservoir water, so I'd like census to authorize our water engineer and water attorney to pursue that a little bit and send me back.
And just as a little background on that, we've done this before where it actually alleviates, because right now when we pull the Bell Mountain water, what does it take us 6 months to get it up here and we lose 15 to 30%, depending on, you know, the heat and everything else. We might get it faster because of the rain and everything we've been getting, but it's just it's a paper transfer between, from another, they'll actually, if they need, they'll collect our water and we're collecting theirs, and it'll be a shorter transfer with no loss. So.
Bell Mountain
anyway,
water, Bell Mountain's down south of Castle Rock.
Yeah.
So
And I don't think anybody will have any issue with that. It'll save us time, money and losses. So, right?
Okay, maybe I'm just not seeing it from my phone. I will try my laptop. Thank you. Well, but it should still take me there and ask me to log in, right?
Anything else? All right, anything, do you have anything, Maureen? Okay, Heather, anything? Okay, all right. You may fire when ready, Gridley.
I move to adjourn to executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-402 with special counsel for legal advice on efforts related to a library in town.
Okay.
Motion and a second, roll call, please.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
trustee Westcott,
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeffrey,
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Bristow,
Yes.
trustee Tapie.
Yes.
And motion carries. All right, the time is now 7:28 and we will take a brief break and we'll come back and go into exec session while we clear the audience out.